All right, let's get started. First things first, there were some issues with you guys with the homework assignment. A lot of it probably resulted from you not reading the instructions. These two are not assignments. Okay, if you're a group of three or four, they only give you the questions. I had to do it as a test. That's the only way I can randomize the questions. Your job is one of the group members to click on that, pick your questions. Then you guys work on it as a group. Then you submit it using chapter two homework. I extended it until midnight tomorrow, so you guys can work on it. And please don't send me things on emails. If I had only one section, I could keep up with stuff. I have close to 100 students in three sections. If you keep sending assignments on emails and stuff, I can't keep up with it where they are. So I'm going to assume that you submitted here. If you haven't and I've given you a grade of 0, come after me. But to prevent that, just submit it using the Blackboard. And please do one video for each problem. I mean, I don't want to have to watch a 20-minute video. One video for each problem. Okay. But Excel file, only one of them. Okay. Let's continue it. We had a late arrival. What was your name? Tapscott. All right. We're going to finish up chapter 3 today. We covered the profitability ratios, but we didn't have time to do growth ratios. These are ratios or growth rates, actually, that kind of tell you uh, what's the maximum growth you can achieve under certain conditions. One of them is internal growth rate, IGR. It's maximum growth rate achievable that can be attained using only internal resources. You know, assuming your profitability ratios and stuff remain the same, what's the maximum you can grow if you don't issue new equity or you don't borrow more? Okay, which means you're going to grow only by using resources you generated internally, which means retained earnings. And the formula we have for that is, I'm going to call this A divided by 1 minus A, where A is defined to be as ROA times retention ratio. Let's call it RR, where RR is 1 minus dividend payout ratio. And dividend payout ratio is cash dividends divided by net income. So what portion of income do you get to keep in the firm? That's the retention ratio. Of course, if firm has a 100% dividend policy, which means any money that firm makes, they distribute it as dividend. What do you think the internal growth rate would be? Surname? So if you're distributing all your income as dividends, do you generate any internal resources? No. Obviously, if you have no internal resources, you can't grow at all. So if dividends are 100%, uh, which means retention ratio is zero, internal growth rate is going to be zero as well. We will also define a sustainable growth rate. SGR as max growth rate achievable, uh, assuming that equity ratio is constant. This time I'm going to allow you to have new equity and new debt, but you have to keep that equity ratio exactly the same. And SGR is, I call that B over 1 minus B. And we define B as this time ROE times retention ratio. It shouldn't be a surprise that if your retention ratio is zero, so is sustainable growth rate. Remember, we're assuming that that equity ratio remains the same. So if you're not adding any retained earnings to the firm, your equity remains the same. If your equity doesn't change, to keep the debt equity ratio the same, you cannot add debt either. Let's just do one example of that. For example, let's look at Netflix. Let me see if they have ROE and ROA as part of statistics. I'm just doing this just to calculate it quickly. ROA is 10.82%. ROE equals 31.57%. You immediately know what that equity ratio would be. As you know, EM is always equal to ROE over ROA. 291, that means it has a debt equity ratio of 191%. That equity ratio is 1 minus EM. And let's look at the dividend payout. Let me see if it's available here. Let's just get net income from financials. Quarterly, trailing 12 months. Right. 7094. We get cash dividends from the cash flow statements.